We will be finishing this play soon. This is Act 5, Scene 1. At the beginning of this, we have a couple of grave diggers that are digging a grave for somebody. And who are they digging for? They're discussing it as they're digging the grave. Notice right at the beginning we have, are they really going to give her a Christian burial after she killed herself? Right here. So we know this is Ophelia. They're digging the grave for her. Because they refer to her. And so why do they have a problem with giving her a Christian burial? Part of the belief by the church at that time, and to this day, is that committing suicide is a sin. So therefore, giving her a Christian burial, many times suicide victims were not given Christian burials because of the fact that they committed a sin just before death. We don't know what happened here. And of course, we're going to have an argument between Laertes and the priest in all of this. So he's insisting upon a Christian burial at this point. The grave diggers use a lot of black humor throughout this scene. There's black humor movies that are very, very popular. Heathers, Little Miss Sunshine, Fargo. You may have seen some of these. But notice some of the phrases. It's a play on words is what it is. It gives us this black humor. It's very dark. Unless she drowned herself in her own defense. Or the scripture says Adam digged. Could he dig without arms? Meaning he didn't have a coat of arms. He wasn't aristocracy. So again, playing on the words. The gallows maker builds stronger than anyone else because that frame outlives 1,000 tenants. It's a joke, playing on words there. Very dark humor that we have here. And this is Shakespeare coming out in his best form. He was also a comic. He didn't just write tragedies. Then Horatio and Hamlet appear. And they do talk to the grave diggers a little bit, but basically they're talking to themselves. As they're digging, you'll notice skulls and bones are coming out because people were just buried one upon the other. There weren't coffins necessarily that were present in all of this. Many times people were just thrown on the ground at that point. And so when they're digging down in, they're coming across bones from other people from before. And Hamlet and Horatio start discussing them. Basically, Hamlet's point of view is that it doesn't matter how great you are. You end up dead just like everybody else, and you're in the ground just like everybody else. And so he mentions down here a couple of great men. He says, right here, he says, the noble ashes of Alexander Great could end up plugging in a hole in a barrel. Can you imagine it? You know, his ashes maybe are now dirt. And then down here he also speaks about the great emperor, Caesar, dead, turned to clay, might plug up a hole and keep the wind away. So his ashes have turned to dirt also. And are maybe being used for, as mortar somewhere. As he's holding Yorick's skull, they came across Yorick, and who knows if it's exactly Yorick, but Hamlet remembers Yorick. He was the man who gave him piggyback rides when he was little. He was a clown of sorts. He goes on speaking about him, imagining the inevitable decay of the human body. Everybody goes through this. Even famous people do. We rot, we smell, we turn to ash, we turn into, rot away into the ground. The only thing that's left is bones. And we know that Hamlet's a bit suicidal at this point. So it's probably true that Horatio knows the same thing. So Horatio is trying to keep him stable. And he says to him one little phrase to try to get him away from these thoughts, obsessing over the death. He says, if you thought that, you'd be thinking too much. So he's trying to get Hamlet out of his head, basically saying, you're thinking too much. Let's move on. Action, buddy. Then we get into Laertes coming into the scene with the priest. And Laertes is trying, and the priests are arguing. The priest says, I've performed as many rites as I'm permitted. Her death was suspicious, And were it not for the fact that the king gave orders to bury her here, she'd have been buried outside the church graveyard. So we realize that the king is the one who chose to make sure that she got buried here. So Laertes says, "Is there's nothing else you can do?" And the priest says, "Nope, nothing." We would profane the other dead souls there if we sang the same requiem for her that we sang for them. So he won't give her last rites. And he won't give her a funeral, essentially processional. He's done what can be done. He's doing exactly what the king ordered him to do and nothing more. So basically, Laertes wants Ophelia to have a Christian burial, but the priest does not, because he says it's likely that she committed suicide. Laertes says, "Lay her in the ground and let violets bloom from her lovely and pure flesh." There's that reference to violets again. Okay. "I'm telling you, you jerk priest, my sister will be an angel in heaven while you're howling in hell." So he's arguing that she was innocent of all this. And he ends up jumping in the grave and weeping his love over his sister, which angers Hamlet. And Hamlet then shouts out, "I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not, with all their quantity of love, make up my sum." He's angry that Laertes is professing his love when he says he loved her. So what do you think? Do you think that Hamlet truly loved Ophelia? And we don't know for sure, so there's no right or wrong here. Did he love her? Did he think he loved her, but he's too crazy to really know what that means? Or is he still pretending to be crazy? And this is a good way to keep people thinking that he's crazy by acting out this scene. What are your thoughts on that? If you had another idea, I'd love to hear. Last but not least, we are going to finish up with Act 5, Scene 2. The RCQ for that is your last RCQ for Hamlet.